Today I'm going to be evaluating the shape of my anvil and discussing with you the changes that I'd like to make to tune it up for the way that I work. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that you go out and start grinding your anvil to configure what I'm going to be discussing with you today. Again, this is just personal preference. It's the way that I work. It's my idea of what a perfect anvil would be shaped like, and it may not suit at all the way that you work. So be careful with any changes that you make. Once you start grinding away the face and the edges of your anvil, it takes a lot of work to bring them back. The purpose of this video is just to show you how I would go over an anvil and assess how far away it is from the specs that I'm looking for. Hopefully it'll illustrate how sometimes an anvil that looks good may still be totally out of whack and require a lot of work to really make it right. Now, I've had this anvil for over 25 years and it's part of the family, so I'll do the work on it to get it right. But if I had to do it over again, I should have taken the money and just gone to a machine shop and bought a 300-pound block of steel and start from that. Because as you'll see in a minute here, this thing really is messed up. Now, one of the areas where I differ greatly from a lot of smiths is that I like having a lot of radiuses ground into my anvil face. I don't believe that an anvil face should be this totally machined surface with lightly rounded corners. Now, if I had a large shop and I had the luxury of being able to set up several anvils in a row, I would have them all tuned up a little differently, and I would have one that is just machined perfectly flat with very lightly radiused edges the way everyone thinks they should be. But this would still be my main anvil that I would set up in the center of all that, because in my opinion, this provides the best working surface for all-round general work. Now, what I'm showing you here is how this anvil face transitions from being basically flat, or at least that's what it's supposed to be, to being quite rounded as you reach the front of the anvil. As you can see, the top edge is slightly domed, and then that transitioned into the actual radius of the corner. So it's kind of like a French curve that has a series of radiuses all joined together. So I guess now I need to discuss why everybody thinks I'm crazy. The reason that I prefer to hammer on a surface that isn't flat is because the various radiuses give you different fullering opportunities. So you can see by simply lifting the bar and tilting it at different angles, the anvil takes a very different bite into the metal, and that allows you to produce a lot finer results than if you simply transition from a flat surface and go directly to fullering on the horn, for example. And you'll see me do this in all of my videos. For example, if I'm trying to create an offset, I have the bar tilted quite far back because I'm trying to reach that corner of the anvil, and as I need to refine the shape and start smoothing it out, I'll bring it back level so I can hammer in the center of the anvil where it's relatively flat. So I'm able to dial in the amount of fullering that I need to draw the bar out the way that I want by simply rocking it back and forth over the face of the anvil rather than moving side to side, which means I have to change my body position to get to the different parts of the anvil. Now, I have to make it very clear here that this only works if you hammer the way that I do. As I described in an earlier video, I use my legs to position my upper body so that I can hammer all these different sections of the anvil. I don't bend at the waist, I don't put any strain on my back. The legs are doing all the work. So check out that video if you haven't seen it. There should be a card flashing at the top right of your screen right now. That'll direct you to that video. The middle section of the anvil is basically flat, and it's just used for straightening work or hammering pieces that do need to have a perfectly flat surface. I really don't do a lot of work at this part of the anvil. Now that you've used the straight edge across the anvil face to see where all the dips and valleys are and see how the radiuses conform to what you're looking for, you need to do the same thing along the length of the anvil. What I like to have on my anvils is the center 2-inch strip be a perfectly flat surface. As you can see here, it dips quite a bit in the middle, so I have a lot of welding to do to bring that up to line. I use this strip mainly to straighten out longer pieces of work. Again, it's not something you do a lot of, but it's nice to know that you can rely on that section being perfectly flat. When I'm checking out an anvil, I also like to extend the straight edge out over the horn to see how it relates to the face. You can see how the horn angles up here quite a bit, so I have to decide how I'm going to address that. I don't use that chipping block for anything, so I may just infill that whole area and have the horn be perfectly level with the anvil face, the way a lot of European anvils are. So that's about all you need to know about the actual face. Next, you need to establish how the face sits in relation to the rest of the anvil. Here you can see how the main part of the face isn't sitting 90 degrees to the body of the anvil. I don't know whether this is the way the anvil was forged or whether it's from years of people grinding the face away trying to get a relatively square corner on the face, and that over the years has created that angle. Now, it may not seem like that big of a deal. Everyone's taught to focus on the edges when they're evaluating an anvil, but the relationship of the face to the side of the anvil is very important, especially if you're trying to clean up a forging that has a 90-degree inside edge. Now, of course, I'm not expecting to find a 90-degree corner here because of the radius that I've ground on the top face, but this angle is consistent right through the whole face of the anvil. So even when I go back to the section of the anvil that is relatively square, I still can't get a 90-degree corner. So on this anvil, anytime I need to forge a clean 90-degree corner, I have to resort to putting an extra anvil block into my hardy hole and forge around it. I can't even find a square corner around the back of the anvil. You can see how far this is out of line. And to make matters worse, the front edge is bowed outwards, so I don't even have a straight line there to work from. So now that I have a clear picture of what's going on with this anvil, I can start figuring out what I need to do to fix it. So I've decided to use the front edge of the anvil as a reference edge, so I need to build out the front and back sections to create a straight line, as well as a flat vertical face that will eventually sit 90 degrees to the top face of the anvil. You can see here how I'm able to fit a piece of chalk in behind this square, so I not only have to straighten this line out, I actually have to move it out about 1/4 of an inch away from its current position. Next, I'm going to build up these two sections of the anvil to create the flat section of the anvil that I need. So when I'm done, this section of the anvil will not only be perfectly flat, it will be 90 degrees to the front and back faces of the anvil. Once I have the front vertical face of the anvil trued up, I'll figure out how much I need to add to this back corner to swing that back around to a 90-degree angle. Next, I'm going to work on developing the flat edge that I want to run through the center of the anvil. I'm going to be using the section that I already have flattened out as a reference, and I'll be bringing everything else up in line with that. And then at this point, it should just be a matter of cleaning up the various radiuses that I already have established at the front edge of this anvil, and then transitioning that section to the flat section that sits close to the hardy hole. So to recap, when I'm done, I will have a short section of the anvil that has a very flat face and relatively sharp corners. And that is going to transition to a section that still has a flat face, but that has slightly larger radiuses at the corner. This is the area of the anvil where I normally clamp the ruler that I use to measure the offsets, so I don't want to have sharp corners there. I need a larger radius. The center section of the face is going to be perfectly flat and level from both directions. And then from this flat section, I'm going to be creating the radiused work surface that I use most of the time when I'm forging. So that's my formula for shaping my anvil. And again, it works for me, but I have to tell you that most of the people that use this anvil can't stand it. But somewhere between this extreme and the perfectly flat machine surface that everyone strives for, you're going to find out what works for you. But when you do find an anvil that you enjoy working on and seems to work for you, take a straight edge to it, do all the checks that I've done here, establish what exactly is going on with that anvil, and then you're going to get an understanding of what works for you. And through that, you're going to gain the confidence to establish what it is you want to do when you need to start modifying your anvils to bring your skill to the next level. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you like this video, by all means give it a thumbs up. If you want to support this channel, you have a couple of options to do that. The first, of course, is to just subscribe. Secondly, if you have any suggestions or photographs of things you'd like to see on this channel, send them along and I'll do my best to turn them into a video. If you want to lend your financial support, you can do that in a couple of ways. First, if you're interested in making an ongoing contribution to this channel, just click the Patreon icon and it'll take you to my Patreon page, and you can donate whatever amount you feel comfortable with. If you want to make a one-time contribution, just go to my channel homepage and click the donate button in the banner. So thank you for your support, and with your help I'll be doing this for some time to come. I'll see you next time.